As before, the notice was being made public, for this was a better guarantee than a private exchange of oaths. To dishonor the pledge would be to bring on public ridicule. Musashi watched the Yoshioka men erect the signboard at the most conspicuous corner in the neighborhood. He turned away nonchalantly and walked rapidly to the Yanagi riding grounds. All alone in the dark, Jotaro was fidgety. Eyes and ears were alert, but he saw only the occasional light of a plug-in and heard only fleeting echoes of men singing songs on their way home. Dreading the thought that Musashi might have been injured or even killed, he eventually lost patience and started off at a run toward Yanagimachi. Before he had gone 100 yards, Musashi's voice came through the darkness. Hey, what's this? Oh, there you are, the boy exclaimed with relief. It took you so long, I decided to go have a look. That wasn't very smart, we might have missed each other. Were there lots of Yoshioka men outside the gate? Quite a few. Didn't they try to capture you? Jotaro looked quizzically up at Musashi's face. Nothing at all happened? That's right. Where are you going? Lord Karasumaru's house is this way. I bet you're eager to see Otsu, aren't you? I want to see her very badly. At this time of night, she will be terribly surprised. An awkward silence ensued. Jotaro, do you remember that little inn where we first met? What was the name of the village? Lord Karasumaru's house is much nicer than that old inn. I'm sure there's no comparison. Everything's closed up for the night, but if we go around to the servants' gate, they will let us in. And when they find out I've brought you, Lord Karasumaru himself may come to greet you. Oh, I meant to ask you, what's wrong with that crazy monk Takuan? He was so mean, it made me sick. He told me the best thing to do with you was leave you alone. And he didn't want to tell me where you were, though he knew perfectly well all along. Musashi made no comment. Jotaro prattled on as they walked. There it is, said Jotaro, pointing at the back gate. Musashi stopped but said nothing. See that light above the fence? That's the north wing where Otsu's staying. She must be waiting up for me. As he made a quick move toward the gate, Musashi gripped his wrist tightly and said, Not just yet. I'm not going into the house. I want you to give Otsu a message for me. Not going in? Isn't that why you are here? No, I only wanted to see that you arrived safely. You must come in. You can't leave now. He tugged frantically at Musashi's sleeve. Keep your voice down, said Musashi, and listen. I won't listen. I won't. You promised to come with me. And I did come, didn't I? I didn't invite you to look at the gate. I asked you to visit Otsu. Calm down. For all I know, I may be dead in a very short time. That's nothing new. You are always saying a samurai must be prepared to die at any time. That's true, and I think it's a good lesson for me to hear you repeat my words, but this time isn't like the others. I already know I don't have one chance in 10 of surviving. That's why I don't think I should see Otsu. That doesn't make sense. You wouldn't understand now if I explain. When you grow older, though, you will. Are you telling the truth? Do you really think you are going to die? I do, but you can't tell Otsu that, not while she's sick. Tell her to be strong, to choose a path that will lead to her future happiness. That's the message I want you to give her. You mustn't mention anything about mine being killed. I will tell her. I will tell her everything. How can I lie to Otsu? Oh, please, please come with me. Musashi pushed him away. You are not listening. Jotaro couldn't hold back the tears. But I feel so sorry for her. If I tell her you refuse to see her, she will get worse. I know she will. That's why you have to give her my message. Tell her it won't do either of us any good to see each other as long as I'm still training to be a warrior. The way I've chosen is one of discipline. It requires me to overcome my sentiments, lead a stoic life, immerse myself in hardship. If I don't, the light I seek will escape me. Think, Jotaro. You yourself are going to have to follow the same path, or you will never become a self respecting warrior. The boy was quiet, except for his weeping. Except for his weeping. Musashi put his arm around him and hugged him. The way of the samurai, one never knows when it will end. When I'm gone, you must find yourself a good teacher. I can't see Otsu now because I know that in the long run, she will be happier if we don't meet. And when she finds happiness, she will understand how I feel now. That light, are you sure it's coming from her room? She must be lonely. You must go and get some sleep. Jotaro was beginning to understand Musashi's dilemma, but there was a trace of sullenness in his attitude as he stood with his back to his teacher. He realized he could press Musashi no farther. Lifting his tearful face, he grasped at the last faint ray of hope. When your studies are finished, will you see Otsu and make up with her? You will, won't you? When you think you have studied long enough. Yes, when that day comes. When will that be? It's difficult to say. 2 years, maybe? Musashi did not answer. 3 years? There's no end to the path of discipline. Aren't you ever going to see Otsu again for the rest of your life? If the talents I was born with are the right ones, I may someday achieve my goal. If not, I may go through life being as stupid as I am now. But now I'm faced with the possibility of dying soon. How can a man with that prospect make vows for the future to a woman as young as Otsu? He had said more than he had intended to. Jotaro looked bewildered, but then said triumphantly, "You don't have to promise Otsu anything. All I'm asking is that you see her. It's not as simple as that. Otsu a young man. I'm a young man. I dislike admitting this to you, but if I met her, I'm afraid my tears would defeat me. I wouldn't be able to stick to my decision." Musashi was no longer the impetuous youth who had spurned Otsu at Hanada Bridge. He was less self-centered and reckless, more patient and much more gentle. Yoshino's charm might have reawakened the fires of passion, had he not rejected love in much the same way that fire repels water. Still, when the woman was Otsu, he lacked confidence in his ability to practice self-control. He knew that he must not think of her without considering the effect he might have on her life. Jotaro heard Musashi's voice close to his ear. "Do you understand now?" The boy wiped the tears from his eyes. But when he took his hand away from his face and looked around, he saw nothing but thick black mist. "Sensei!" he cried. Even as he ran to the corner of the long earthen wall, he knew his cries would never bring Musashi back. He pressed his face to the wall. The tears came afresh. He felt utterly defeated, again by adult reasoning. He wept until his throat tightened and no sound came out. But his shoulders went on shaking with convulsive sobs. Noticing a woman outside the servants' gate, he thought it must be one of the kitchen girls returning from a late errand and wondered if she had heard him crying. The shadowy figure raised her veil and walked slowly toward him. "Jotaro? Jotaro, is that you? Otsu, what are you doing out here? You are sick. I was worried about you. Why did you leave without saying anything to anyone? Where have you been all this time? The lamps were lit and the gate closed and still you didn't return. I can't tell you how worried I was." "You are crazy. What if your fever goes up again? Go back to bed right now." "Why were you crying? I'll tell you later. I want to know now. There must have been something to upset you so. You went chasing after Takuin, didn't you?" Yes. Did you find out where Musashi is?" "Takuin's evil. I hate him." "He didn't tell you. No, you're hiding something from me." "Oh, you are both impossible," wailed Jotaro. "You and that stupid teacher of mine. I can't tell you anything before you lie down and I put a cold towel on your head. If you don't go back to the house now, I'm going to drag you there." Seizing her wrist with one hand and beating on the gate with the other, he called furiously, "Open up! The sick girl's out here. If you don't hurry up, she will freeze." A toast to the morrow. Matahachi paused on the pebble road and wiped the sweat from his forehead. He had run all the way from Gojo Avenue to Sannin Hill. His face was quite red, but this was due more to the sake he had drank than to the rare physical exertion. Ducking through the dilapidated gate, he trotted round to the little house beyond the vegetable garden. "Mother," he called urgently. Then he glanced into the house and muttered, "Is she sleeping again?" After stopping by the well to wash his hands and feet, he entered the house. Osugi stopped snoring, opened one eye, and roused herself. "Why are you making such a racket?" she asked grumpily. "Oh, are you finally awake? What do you mean by that? All I have to do is sit down for a minute and you start gripping about how lazy I am, nagging at me to search for Musashi." "Well, pardon me," Osugi said indignantly, "for being old. I have to sleep for my health, but nothing's wrong with my spirit. I haven't felt well since the night Otsu got away, and my wrist, where Takuan grabbed it, is still sore." "Why is it every time I feel good you start complaining about something?" Osugi glared. "You don't often hear me complain, in spite of my age. Have you found out anything about Otsu or Musashi?" "The only people in town who haven't heard the news are old women who sleep all day." "News? What news?" Osugi was immediately on her knees, crawling closer to her son. "Musashi's going to have a third bout with the Yoshioka school. When? Where?" "There's a sign at Yanagimachi with all the details. It's going to be in Ichijoji village early tomorrow morning." Yanagimachi, that's the licensed quarter. Otsugi's eyes narrowed. "What were you doing, loafing in the middle of the day in a place like that?" "I wasn't loafing," Matahachi said defensively. "You always take things the wrong way. I was there because it's a good place to pick up news." "Never mind, I was just teasing. I'm satisfied you have settled down and won't go back to the wicked life you were leading." "But did I hear you right? Did you say tomorrow morning?" "Yes, at 5 o'clock. Osugi thought, "Didn't you tell me you knew somebody at the Yoshioka school?" "Yes, but I didn't meet them under very favorable circumstances." "Why?" "I want you to take me to the school right now. Get yourself ready." Matahachi was again struck by the impetuousness of the aged. Without making a move, he said coolly, "Why get excited? Anybody would think the house was on fire. What do you expect to accomplish?" "What do you expect to accomplish by going to the Yoshioka school?" "Volunteer our services, of course, huh? They are going out to kill Musashi tomorrow. I will ask them to let us join them. We may not be much help, but we can probably get in at least one good blow." "Mother, you must be joking." Matahachi laughed. "What do you find so funny? You are so simple-minded." "How dare you speak that way? You are the one who's simple-minded. Instead of arguing, go out and look around. The Yoshiokas are out for blood. This is their last chance. The rules of fighting aren't going to mean anything to them. The only way they can possibly save the house of Yoshioka is by killing Musashi. Any way they can. It's no secret they are going to attack in force." "Is that so?" Osugi purred. "Then Musashi's bound to be killed, isn't he?" "I'm not so sure. He may bring men to help him, and if he does, it will be quite a battle. That's what a lot of people think will happen." "They may be right, but it's still annoying. We can't just sit on our hands and let somebody else kill him after searching for him all this time." "I agree, and I've got a plan," Matahachi said excitedly. "If we get there before the battle, we can present ourselves to the Yoshiokas and tell them why we are after Musashi. I'm sure they will let us strike a blow at the corpse. Then we can take some of his hair or a sleeve or something like that and use it to prove to the people back home that we killed him. That would restore our standing, wouldn't it?" "That's a good plan, my son. I doubt if there's any better way." Apparently forgetting that she had once suggested the same thing to him, she sat straight and squared her shoulders. "Not only would it clear our name, but with Musashi dead, Otsu would be like a fish out of water." His mother's calm restored, Matahachi felt relief, but also thirsty again. Well, that's settled. We have a few hours to wait. Don't you think we should have some sake before dinner? All right. Have some brought out here. I will have a little myself to celebrate our approaching victory. As he put his hands on his knees and started to get up, he glanced to one side, blinked and stared. Akemi, he cried and ran to the small window. She was cowering under a tree just outside, like a guilty cat that had not quite managed to flee in time. Staring with disbelieving eyes, she gasped, Matahachi, is that you? What brought you here? Oh, I've been staying here for some time. I had no idea. Are you with Oko? No, don't you live with her anymore? No, you know Gion Toji, don't you? I've heard of him. He and mother ran away together. Her little bell tinkled as she raised her sleeve to hide her tears. The light in the shade of the tree had a bluish tinge. The nape of her neck, her delicate hand, everything about her looked very different from the Akemi he remembered. The girlish glow that had so enchanted him at Ibuki and relieved his gloom at the Yomogi was no longer in evidence. Matahachi, said Osugi suspiciously, who's that you're talking to? It's the girl I told you about before, Oko's daughter. Her? What was she doing? Eavesdropping? Matahachi turned, saying heatedly, Why do you always jump to conclusions? She's staying here too. She just happened to be passing by, right, Akemi? Yes, I didn't dream you were here, though I saw that girl named Otsu here once. Did you talk to her? Not really, but later I got to wondering, isn't she the girl you were engaged to? Yes. I thought so. My mother caused you a lot of trouble, didn't she? Matahachi ignored the question. Are you still single? You look different somehow. Mother made life miserable for me after you left. I put up with it as long as I could because she is my mother. But last year when we were in Sumiyoshi, I ran away. She messed up both our lives, didn't she? But you just wait and see. In the end, she will get what she deserves. I don't even care if she doesn't. I just wish I knew what I'm going to do from now on. Me too. The future doesn't look very bright. I would like to get even with Oko, but I suppose all I'll ever do is think about it. While they were complaining about their difficulties, Osugi had busy herself with her travel preparations. Now, with a click of her tongue, she said sharply, Matahachi, why are you standing there grumbling to somebody who has nothing to do with us? Come help me pack. Yes, mother. Goodbye, Matahachi. See you again. Looking dejected and ill at ease, Akemi hurried away. Presently, a lamp was lit and the maid appeared with dinner trays and sake. Mother and son exchanged cups without looking at the bill, which lay on the tray between them. The servants, who came one by one to pay their respects, were followed by the innkeeper himself. So you are leaving tonight, he said. It has been good having you with us for so long. I'm sorry we haven't been able to give you the special treatment you deserve. We hope to see you again when you are next in Kyoto. Thank you, replied Osugi. I may very well come again. Let's see, it's been 3 months, hasn't it, since the end of the year? Yes, about that. We'll miss you. Won't you have a little sake with us? That's very kind of you. It's quite unusual to be leaving at night. What made you decide to do that? To tell the truth, some important business came up very suddenly. By the way, do you happen to have a map of Ichijoji village? Let's see. That's a little place on the other side of Shirakawa, near the top of Mount Hiei. I don't think you better be going there in the middle of the night. It's quite deserted and... That doesn't matter, interrupted Matahachi. Would you please just draw us a map? I'll be glad to. One of my servants comes from there. He can furnish me with the information I need. Ichijoji, you know, doesn't have many people, but it's spread out over quite a large area. Matahachi, a little drunk, said curtly, Don't worry about where we are going. We just want to know how to get there. Oh, forgive me. Take your time with your preparations. Rubbing his hands together obsequiously, he bowed his way out onto the veranda. As he was about to step down into the garden, 3 or 4 of his employees came running up. The chief clerk saying excitedly, Didn't she come this way? Who? That girl, the one who was staying in the back room. Well, what about her? I'm sure I saw her earlier in the evening, but then I look in her room and get to the point. We can't find her. You idiot, shouted the innkeeper, his outraged face devoid of the wily civility he had shown a few moments ago. What's the use of running around like this after she's gone? You should have known from her looks there was something wrong. You let a week go by without making sure she had money. How can I stay in business with you doing stupid things like that? I'm sorry, sir, she seemed decent. Well, it's too late now. You better see whether anything's missing from the other guest rooms. Oh, what a pack of dunces. He stormed off toward the front of the inn. Otsugi and Matahachi drank a little more sake. Then the old woman switched to tea and advised her son to do likewise. I'll just finish what's here, he said, pouring himself another cup. I don't want anything to eat. It's not good for you to eat. Have a little rice and some pickles at least. Clerks and servants were running about in the garden and passageways, waving their lanterns. They don't seem to have caught her, said Otsugi. I don't want to get involved, so I kept quiet in front of the innkeeper, but don't you think the girl they are looking for is the one you were talking to earlier? I wouldn't be surprised. Well, you couldn't expect much from somebody with a mother like hers. Why on earth were you so friendly with her? I feel kind of sorry for her. She has had a hard life. Well, be careful and don't let on that you know her. If the innkeeper thinks she has some connection with us, he will demand that we pay her bill. Matahachi had other things on his mind. Clutching the back of his head, he lay back and grumbled, I could kill that whore. I can see her face now. Musashi's not the one who led me astray. It was Oko. Otsugi rebuked him sharply. Don't be stupid. Supposing you killed Oko, what good would it do our reputation? Nobody in the village knows or cares about her. At 2 o'clock, the innkeeper came to the veranda with a lantern and announced the time. Matahachi stretched and asked, Did you catch the girl? No, no sign of her, he sighed. She was pretty, so the clerks thought that even if she couldn't pay her bill, we could get back the money by having her live here for a while. If you see what I mean. Unfortunately, she was a bit too fast for us. Sitting on the edge of the veranda, Matahachi tied his sandals. After waiting a minute or so, he called irritably, Mother, what are you doing in there? You are always hurrying me up, but at the last minute you are never ready. Just hold on, Matahachi. Did I give you the money pouch I carry in my traveling bag? I paid the bill with some cash from my stomach wrapper, but our travel money was in the pouch. I haven't seen it. Come here a minute. Here's a scrap of paper with your name on it. What? Why, of all the nerve, it says that because of her long acquaintance with you, she hopes you will pardon her for borrowing the money. Borrowing. That's Akemi's writing. Otsugi turned on the innkeeper. Look here, if a guest property is stolen, the responsibility is yours. You will have to do something about this. Is that so? He smiled broadly. Ordinarily, that would be the case, but since it appears you knew the girl, I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to take care of her bill first. Otsugi's eyes darted back and forth wildly as she stammered, What are you talking about? Why? I never saw that thieving wench before in my life. Matahachi, stop fooling around. If we don't get started, the cock will be crowing. The Death Trap. With the moon still high in the early morning sky, the shadows of the men climbing the white mountain path collided eerily, making the climbers feel even more uneasy. This isn't what I expected, said one. Me either. There are lots of faces missing. I thought for sure there'll be 150 of us at least. Doesn't look like half that many. I guess when Genzaemon arrives with his men, we'll total about 70 in all. It's too bad. The house of Yoshioka certainly isn't what it used to be. From another group, who cares about the ones who aren't here? With the dojo closed, a lot of men have to think first about making a living. The proudest and most loyal are here. That's more important than numbers. Right, if there were 100 or 200 men here, they would just get in each other's way. Ha ha, talking brave again. Remember the Rangyo Inn? 20 men standing around and Musashi still got away. Mount Hiei and the other peaks were still fast asleep in the folds of the clouds. The men were gathered at the fork of a little country road where one path led to the top of Hiei and the other branched off toward Ichijoji. The road was steep, rocky, and deeply furrowed by gullies. Around the most prominent landmark, A great pine tree spreading out like a gigantic umbrella was a group of the senior disciples, seated on the ground like so many night-crawling crabs. They were discussing the terrain. The road has 3 branches, so the question is which one Musashi will use. The best strategy is to divide the men into 3 squads and station one at each approach. Then Genjiro and his father can stay here with a corps of about 10 of our strongest men, Maiki, Ueda, and the others. No, the ground's too rugged to have a large number of men in one place. We should spread them out along the approaches and have them stay hidden until Musashi is halfway up. Then they can attack from front and rear simultaneously. There was a good deal of coming and going among the groups, moving shadows appearing to be skewer on lances or long scabbards. Despite a tendency to underestimate their enemy, there were no cowards among them. "He's coming," a man on the outer rim shouted. Shadows came to a dead standstill. An icy twinge ran through the veins of every samurai. "Take it easy, it's only Genjiro." "Why, he's riding in a palanquin." "Well, he's only a child." The slowly approaching lanterns, swinging to and fro in the chilly winds from Mount Hiei, seemed dull in comparison with the moonlight. A few minutes later, Kanzaemon alighted from his palanquin and declared, "I guess we are all here now." Kenjiro, a boy of 13, emerged from the next palanquin. Father and son both wore tightly tied white headbands and had their hakama hitched up high. Genzaemon instructed his son to go and stand under the pine. The boy nodded silently as his father gave him an encouraging pat on the head, saying, "The battle is being carried out in your name, but the fighting will be done by the disciples. Since you are too young to take part, you don't have to do anything but stand there and watch." Kanjiro ran straight to the tree, where he assumed a pose as stiff and dignified as a samurai doll at the boys' festival. "We are a little early," said Genzaemon. "The sun won't be up for a while." Fumbling around his waist, he pulled out a long pipe with a large bowl. "Does anyone have a light?" he asked casually, letting the other know that he was in complete command of himself. A man stepped forward and said, "Sir, before you settle down for a smoke, don't you think we should decide how to divide up the men?" "Yes, I guess we should. Let's station them quickly so we'll be prepared." "How are you going to do it?" "There's a central force here by the tree. Other men will be hiding at intervals of about 20 paces on both sides of the 3 roads. Who will be here by the tree? You and I and about 10 others. By being here, we can protect Genjiro and be ready to join in when the signal comes that Musashi has arrived." "Wait just a minute," said Genzaemon, thinking over the strategy with judicious caution. "If the men are spread out like that, there'll be only about 20 in a position to attack him at the outset. True, but he'll be surrounded." "Not necessarily. You can be sure he will bring help, and you have to remember he's as good at extracting himself from a tight spot as he is at fighting, if not better. Don't forget the Renkyo-in. He might strike at a point where our men are thinly dispersed, wound 3 or 4, then leave. Then he will go around bragging he had taken on more than 70 members of the Yoshioka school and come out the victor. We'll never let him get away with that. It will be his word against ours. Even if he brings supporters, people are going to regard this match as being between him personally and the Yoshioka school as a whole, and their sympathies are going to be with the lone swordsman." "I think," said Maiki Jirozeman, "it goes without saying that if he escapes again, we'll never live it down, no matter what we say. We are here to kill Musashi, and we can't be too fussy about how we do it. Dead men tell no tales." Jirozeman summoned 4 men in the nearest group to come forward. 3 of them carried small bows, the 4th a musket. He had them face Genzaemon. "Perhaps you would like to see what precautions you have taken." "We've taken, flying weapons. We can station them on high ground or in trees. Won't people say we are using dirty tactics? We care less about what people say than about making sure Musashi is dead. All right, if you're prepared to face the criticism, I have nothing more to add," the old man said meekly. Even if Musashi brings along 5 or 6 men, he's not likely to escape when we have bows and arrows and a gun. Now, if we go on standing here, we may find ourselves taken by surprise. I leave the disposition of the men to you, but get them to their posts immediately. The black shadows dispersed like wild geese in a marsh, some diving into copses of bamboo, others disappearing behind trees or flattening themselves out on the ridges between the rice paddies. The 3 archers ascended to a higher point overlooking the field. Below, the musketeer climbed into the upper branches of the spreading pine. As he squirmed about to conceal himself, pine needles and bark cascaded onto Genjiro. Noticing the boy wriggling around, Genzaemon said reprovingly, "You are not nervous already, are you? Don't be such a coward." "It's not that. I've got pine needles down my back. Stand still and bear it. This will be a good experience for you. Watch closely when the actual fighting begins." Along the easternmost approach, a great shout went up. "Stop, you crazy fool!" The bamboo wrestled long enough to let any but the deaf know men were hiding all along the roads. Genjiro cried, "I'm scared," and hugged his father around the waist. Jirozeman immediately set off toward the commotion, though somehow sensing that this was a false alarm. Sasaki Kojiro was bawling out one of the Yoshioka men. "Haven't you got eyes? That idea of mistaking me for Musashi. I've come here to act as a witness, and you come running at me with a lance. What an ass!" The Yoshioka men, too, were angry, some of them suspecting he might be spying on them. They held themselves back, but continued to block his way. As Jirozeman broke through the cycle, Kojiro lit into him. "I came here to stand as witness, but your men are treating me as an enemy. If they are acting on instructions from you, I'll be more than happy, clumsy swordsman that I am, to take you on. I have no reason to help Musashi, but I do have my honor to uphold. Besides, this will be a welcome opportunity for me to dampen my drying pole with some fresh blood. Something I've neglected to do for some time now." He was a tiger spitting fire. Those of the Yoshioka men who had been deceived by his foppish appearance were taken aback by his sheer nerve. Jirozeman, determined to show that he was not frightened by Kojiro's tongue, laughed. "Ha ha, you are really riled, aren't you? But tell me, just who asked you to be a witness? I don't remember any such request. Did Musashi?" "Don't talk nonsense. When we posted the sign at Yanagimachi, I told both parties I would act as witness." "I see, you said that. In other words, Musashi didn't ask you, nor did we. You took it upon yourself to be an observer. Well, the world is full of people who butt into affairs that don't concern them." "That's an insult," snapped Kojiro, spit flying from his mouth. Jirozeman cried, "Go away, we're not here to put on a show." Kojiro, blue with rage, deftly detached himself from the group and ran a short distance back down the path. "Watch out, you bastards," he shouted, preparing to attack. Genzaemon, who had trailed after Jirozeman, said, "Wait, young man." "You wait," shouted Kojiro. "I have no business with you, but I'll show you what happens to people who insult me." The old man ran up to him. Now, you are taking this too seriously. Our men are keyed up. I'm Seijiro's uncle, and I heard from him that you are an outstanding swordsman. I'm sure there has been some mistake. I hope you will forgive me personally for our man's conduct. I'm grateful to you for greeting me in this fashion. I've been on good terms with Seijiro, and I wish the house of Yoshioka well, though I do not feel I can act as a second. But that is no reason for your man to insult me." Kneeling in a formal bow, Kanzeman said, "You are quite right. I hope you will forget what happened for the sake of Seijiro and Denshichiro." The old man chose his words tactfully, worried that Kojiro, if offended, might advertise the cowardly strategy they had adopted. Kojiro's anger subsided. "Stand up, sir. I'm embarrassed to have an older man bow before me." In a swift about-face, the wielder of the drying pole now put his eloquent tongue to work, encouraging the Yoshioka men and vilifying Musashi. "I have for some time been friendly with Seijiro, And as I said before, I have no connection with Musashi. It is only natural that I favor the house of Yoshioka. I have seen many conflicts among warriors, but never have I witnessed a tragedy such as has befallen you. It is incredible that the house that served the Ashikaga shoguns as instructors in the martial arts should be brought into disrepute by a mere country bumpkin. His words, spoken as though he were deliberately trying to make their ears burn, were received with rapt attention. On Jerusalem's face was a look of regret for having spoken so rudely to a man who had nothing but goodwill for the house of Yoshioka. The reaction was not lost on Kojiro. He picked up momentum. In the future, I plan to establish a school of my own. It is therefore no other curiosity that I make a practice of observing bouts and studying the tactics of other fighters. This is part of my education. I do not believe, however, that I have ever witnessed or heard of a bout that irritated me more than your two encounters with Musashi. Why, when so many of you were at the Rangyo Inn and before that at the Rendaiji, did you allow Musashi to escape so that he could swagger about the streets of Kyoto? This I could not comprehend. Licking his drying lips, he went on, "There's no doubt Musashi is a surprisingly tenacious fighter. As vagabond swordsmen go, I know that myself just from having seen him a couple of times, but at the risk of seeming meddlesome, I want to tell you what I found out about Musashi." Without mentioning Akemi's name, he elaborated. "The first information came to me when I happened to meet a woman who had known him since he was 17. Filling out what she told me with other bits of information picked up here and there, I can give you a fairly complete outline of his life. He was born the son of a provincial samurai in Mimasaka province. He ran away to the Battle of Sekigahara and after returning home committed so many atrocities that he was driven out of the village. Since then, he has been roaming about the countryside. Though he is a man of worthless character, he possesses a certain talent for the sword, and physically he is extremely strong. Moreover, he fights with no regard for his own life. Because of this, orthodox methods of swordsmanship are ineffective against him. Just as reason is ineffective against insanity, you must trap him as you would a vicious animal, or you will fail. Now consider what your enemy is like and make your plans accordingly." Genzamen, with great formality, thanked Kojiro and proceeded to describe the precautions that had been taken. Kojiro nodded his approval. "If you've been that thorough, he probably hasn't a chance of getting away alive. Still, it seems to me you could devise a more effective trick." "Trick?" repeated Genzamen, taking a fresh and somewhat less admiring look at Kojiro's cocky face. "Thank you, but I think we have done enough already." "No, my friend, you haven't. If Musashi comes walking up the path in an honest, straightforward manner, there's probably no way he can escape. But what if he should find out about your strategy in advance and not show up at all? Then all your planning will have been in vain, won't it? If he does that, we only have to put up signs all over the city to make him the laughing stock of Kyoto. That would no doubt restore your face to some degree, but don't forget he would still be free to go around saying your tactics were dirty. In that case, you wouldn't have cleared your master's name completely. Your preparations are meaningless unless you kill Musashi here today. To be sure of doing that, you must take steps to ensure that he actually comes here and falls into the death trap you have set." "Is there any way of doing that?" "Certainly. In fact, I can think of several ways." Kojiro's voice was full of confidence. He bent forward and with a look of friendliness not often observed on his proud face, whispered a few words in Kenzamen's ear. "How about that?" he asked out loud. I see what you mean." The old man nodded several times, then turned to Jirozamen and whispered the scheme to him. A meeting in the moonlight. It was already past midnight when Musashi arrived at a small inn north of Kitano where he had first met Jotaro. The astonished innkeeper welcomed him cordially and quickly prepared a place for him to sleep. Musashi went out early in the morning and returned late in the evening, presenting the old man with a sack of Kurama sweet potatoes. He also showed him a board of bleached Nara cotton, purchased at a nearby shop, and asked if he could have it made up into an undershirt, a stomach wrapper, and a loincloth. The innkeeper obligingly took the cloth to a neighborhood seamstress, and on his way back bought some sake. He made a stew with the sweet potatoes and chatted with Musashi over the stew and sake until midnight. When the seamstress came with the clothes, Musashi folded the clothing neatly and placed it beside his pillow before retiring. The old man was awakened long before dawn by the sound of splashing water. Looking out, he saw that Musashi had bathed with cold well water and was standing in the moonlight wearing his new underwear and just putting on his old kimono. Musashi, remarking that he was a little tired of Kyoto and had decided to go to Edo, promised that when he came to Kyoto again in 3 or 4 years, he would stay at the inn. The innkeeper having tied his obi in the bag for him, Musashi set off at a fast pace. He took the narrow path through the fields to the Kitano High Road, carefully picking his way through the parks of Oxdang. The old man watched sadly as the darkness swallowed him. Musashi's mind was as clear as the sky above him. Physically refreshed, his body seemed to grow more buoyant with each step. "There's no reason to walk so fast," he said out loud, slackening his pace. "I suppose this will be my last night in the realm of the living." This was neither exclamation nor lament, merely a statement coming unbidden to his lips. He had no sense as yet of actually staring death in the face. He had spent the previous day meditating under a pine tree at the inner temple at Kurama, hoping to achieve that state of bliss in which body and soul no longer matter. Unsuccessful in his effort to rid himself of the idea of death, he was now ashamed of having wasted his time. The night air was invigorating. The sake just the right amount, a short but sound sleep, the bracing well water, new clothing. He did not feel like a man about to die. He recalled the night in the dead of winter when he had forced himself to the top of Eagle Mountain. Then, too, the stars had been dazzling, and the trees had been festooned with icicles. The icicle would now have given way to budding flowers. His head full of stray thoughts, he found it impossible to concentrate on the vital problem facing him. What purpose, he wondered, would be served at this stage? Would be served at this stage by pondering questions that a century of thinking would not solve: the meaning of death, the agony of dying, the life that would follow afterward. The district he was in was inhabited by noblemen and their retainers. He heard the doleful sound of a flageolet, accompanied by the slow strains of a reed-mouthed organ. In his mind's eye, he saw mourners seated around a coffin, waiting for the dawn. Had the dirge penetrated his ears before he actually became aware of it? Perhaps it had aroused a subconscious memory of the dancing virgins of Issei and his experience on Eagle Mountain. Doubt gnawed at his mind. As he paused to give the matter some thought, he noticed that he had passed the Shokokuji and was now only about 100 yards from the silvery Kamo River. In the light reflected on a dirt wall, he caught sight of a still, dark figure. The man walked toward him, followed by a smaller shadow, a dog on a leash. Satisfied by the presence of the animal that the man was not one of his enemies, he relaxed and walked on by. The other man took a few steps, turned and said, "Can I trouble you, sir?" "Yes, if it's all right." His cap and hakama were of the sort worn by artisans. "What is it?" asked Musashi. "Forgive me a peculiar question, but did you notice a house all lit up along this street?" "I wasn't paying much attention, but no, I don't think I did. I guess I'm on the wrong street again." "What are you looking for?" "A house where there has just been a death." "I didn't see the house, but I heard a mouth organ and a flageolet about 100 yards back. That must be the place. The Shinto priest probably arrived before me and began the wake. Are you attending the wake? Not exactly. I'm a coffin maker from Toribe Hill. I was asked to go to the Matsuo house, so I went to the Yoshida Hill. They don't live there anymore. The Matsuo family on Yoshida Hill? Yes, I didn't know they had moved. I went a long way for nothing. Thank you. Wait, Musashi said. Would that be Matsuo Kaname, who's in the service of Lord Konoe? That's right. He fell sick only about 10 days before he died. Musashi turned and walked on. The coffin maker hurried off in the opposite direction. So my uncle's dead, thought Musashi matter-of-factly. He recalled how his uncle had scraped and saved to accumulate a small sum of money. He thought of the rice cakes he had received from his aunt and devoured on the bank of the freezing river on New Year's morning. He wondered vacantly how his aunt would get along now that she was all alone. He stood on the bank of the Upper Kamo and regarded the looming dark panorama of the 36 hills of Higashiyama. Each peak seemed to stare back at him with enmity. Then he ran down to a pontoon bridge. From the northern part of the city, it was necessary to cross here to reach the road to Mount Hiei and the pass leading to Omi province. He was halfway across when he heard a voice, loud but indistinct. He stopped and listened. The rapidly flowing water gargled cheerfully, while a cloud wind swept through the valley. He couldn't locate the source of the cry, and after a few more steps, paused again at the sound of the voice. Still unable to tell where it came from, he hurried on to the other bank. As he left the bridge, he spied a man with upraised arms running toward him from the north. The figure seemed familiar. It was Sasaki Kojiro, the ubiquitous fixer. As he approached, he greeted Musashi in an all too friendly way. After a glance across the bridge, he asked, "Are you alone?" "Yes, of course." "I hope you will pardon me for the other night," said Kojiro. "Thank you for putting up with my interference." "I think it is I who should thank you," replied Musashi with equal politeness. "Are you on your way to the bout?" "Yes." "All alone?" Kojiro asked again. "Yes, of course." I wonder, Musashi, if you have misunderstood the sign we put up at Yanagimachi. I don't think so. You are fully aware of the conditions. This isn't to be a simple man-to-man fight as it was in the case of Seijiro and Denshichiro. I know that. Though the battle will be fought in the name of Genjiro, he will be aided by members of the Yoshioka school. Do you understand that members of the Yoshioka school could be 10 men or 100, even 1,000? Yes, why do you ask? Some of the weaker men have run away from the school, but the stronger and more courageous have all gone up to the spreading pine. Right now they are stationed all over the hillside waiting for you. Have you been to take a look? And I decided I'd better come back and warn you. Knowing you crossed the pontoon bridge, I waited here. I consider this my duty since I wrote the sign. That's very thoughtful of you. Well, that's the situation. Are you really intending to go alone, or do you have supporters going by another route? I will have one companion. Is that so? Where is he now? Right here, Musashi. His laughing teeth shining in the moonlight pointed to his shadow. Kojiro bristled. This is no laughing matter. I didn't mean it as a joke. Oh, it sounded as though you were making fun of my advice. Musashi, assuming an attitude even graver than Kojiro's, countered, "Do you think the great Saint Shinran was joking when he said that any believer has the strength of two because the Buddha Amida walks with him?" Kojiro did not answer. From all appearances, it seems the Yoshiokas have the upper hand. They are not in force. They are out in force. I'm alone. Without a doubt, you are assuming I'll be beaten, but I beg you not to worry on my behalf. Supposing I knew they had 10 men and took 10 men with me, what would happen? They would throw in 20 men rather than 10. If I took 20, they would increase the number to 30 or 40, and the battle would create an even greater public disturbance. Many people will be killed or injured. The result will be a serious infringement against the principles of government, with no compensating advancement for the cause of swordsmanship. In other words, there will be much to lose and little to gain by my calling in assistance. True as that may be, it's not in accordance with the art of war to enter into a battle you know you are going to lose. There are times when it's necessary. No, not according to the art of war. Abandoning yourself to rash action is quite a different matter. Whether or not my method is in accordance with the art of war, I know what's necessary for me. You are breaking all the rules. Musashi laughed. If you insist on going against the rules, argued Kojiro, why don't you at least choose a line of action that will give you a chance to go on living? The path I'm following is, for me, the way toward a fuller life. You'll be lucky if it doesn't lead you straight to hell. This river, you know, may be the three-pronged river of hell. This road, the mile-long road to perdition. The hill I will soon climb, the mountain of needles on which the damned are impaled. Nevertheless, this is the only path toward true life. The way you talk, you may already be possessed by the god of death. Think what you like, there are people who die by remaining alive and others who gain life by dying. You poor devil, said Kojiro, half in derision. Tell me, Kojiro, if I follow this road, where will it take me? To Hanaoki village, and then to the spreading pine at Ichijoji, where you have chosen to die. How far is it? Only about 2 miles. You have plenty of time. Thank you, I'll see you later, said Musashi briefly, as he turned and started down a side road. That's not the way, Musashi nodded. That's the wrong way, I tell you. I know. He went on down the slope beyond the trees on either side of the road were tired rice paddies. Off in the distance, a few thatched farmhouses. Kojiro watched Musashi stop, looked up at the moon, and stand still for a time. Kojiro broke into laughter as it dawned on him that Musashi was urinating. He himself looked up at the moon, thinking that before it had set, a lot of men would be dead or dying. Musashi didn't come back. Kojiro sat down on the root of a tree and contemplated the coming fight with a sentiment approaching glee. To judge from Musashi's calmness, he is already resigned to dying. Still, he would put up a tremendous struggle. The more of them he cuts down, the more fun it will be to watch. Ah, but the Yoshiokas have flying weapons. If he's hit by one of them, the show will be over right then. That would spoil everything. I think I'll better tell him about them. There was now a little mist and a pre-dawn chill in the air. Standing up, Kojiro called, Musashi, what's taking you so long? A sense that something was off-key sent a pang of anxiety through him. He walked rapidly down the slope and called again. The only sound was the turning of a water wheel. The silly bastard. Racing back to the main road, he looked around in all directions, seeing only the temple roofs and forests of Shirakawa, rising on the slopes of Higashiyama, and the moon. Jumping to the conclusion that Musashi had run away, he rebuked himself for not seeing through his calmness and took off at a flying pace for Ichijoji. Grinning, Musashi emerged from behind a tree and stood where Kojiro had been standing. He was glad to be rid of him. He had no use for a man who took pleasure in watching other people die, who watched impassively while other men staked their lives on causes that were important to them. Kojiro was no innocent spectator, motivated only by the desire to learn. He was a deceitful, scheming interloper, always out to ingratiate himself with both sides, always presenting himself as the splendid chap who wants to help everybody. Perhaps Kojiro had thought that if he told Musashi how strong the enemy was, Musashi would get down on his knees and ask him to serve as his second. And conceivably, if Musashi's first objective had been to preserve his own life, he would have welcomed assistance. But even before meeting Kojiro, he had picked up enough information to know he might have to face 100 men. It wasn't that he had forgotten the lesson Takuan had taught him. The truly brave man is one who loves life, cherishing it as a treasure that once forfeited can never be recovered. He well knew that to live was more than merely to survive. The problem was how to imbue his life with meaning, how to ensure that his life would cast a bright ray of light into the future, even if it became necessary to give up that life for a cause. If he succeeded in doing this, the length of his life, 20 years or 70, made little difference. A lifetime was only an insignificant interval in the endless flow of time. To Musashi's way of thinking, there was one way of life for ordinary people, another for the warrior. It was vitally important for him to live like a samurai and to die like one. There was no turning back from the path he had chosen. Even if he was hacked to pieces, the enemy could not obliterate the fact of his having responded fearlessly and honestly to the challenge. He gave his attention to the routes available. The shortest, as well as the widest and easiest to travel, was the road Kojiro had taken. Another, not quite so direct, was a path leading along the Takano River, a tributary of the Kamo, to the Ohara High Road, and then by way of the Shugakuin Imperial Villa to Ichijoji. The third route went east for a short distance, then north as far as the foothills of Uru, and finally across a path into a village. The three roads met at the spreading pine. The difference in distance was insignificant, yet from the viewpoint of a small force attacking a much larger one, the approach was all important. The choice itself could decide victory or defeat. Instead of weighing the problem at some length, after only a momentary pause, he started running in a direction almost opposite from that of Ichijoji. First, he crossed over the foot of Kagura Hill to a point behind the tomb of the Emperor Go-Ichijo. Then, passing through a thick bamboo grove, he came to a mountain stream flowing through a village in the northwest. Looming above him was the north shoulder of Mount Daimonji. Silently, he began climbing. Through the trees on his right, he could see a garden wall, apparently belonging to the Ginkakuji. Almost directly beneath him, the jujube-shaped pond in the garden shone like a mirror. As he went farther up, the pond was lost in the trees and the rippling Kamo River came into view. He felt as though he held the whole city in the palm of his hand. He stopped for a moment to check his position. By proceeding horizontally across the sides of four hills, he could reach a point above and behind the spreading pine where he could command a bird's-eye view of the enemy's position. Like Oda Nobunaga at the Battle of Okihazama, he had spurned the usual routes in favor of a difficult detour. Who goes there? Musashi froze and waited. Footsteps approached cautiously. Seeing a man dressed like a samurai in the service of a court noble, Musashi decided he was not a member of the Yoshioka forces. The man's nose was smudged from the smoke of his torch. His kimono was damp and mud-spattered. He uttered a little cry of surprise. Musashi stared at him suspiciously. "Aren't you Miyamoto Musashi?" the man asked with a low bow, his eyes tinged with fright. Musashi's eyes brightened in the light of the torch. "Are you Miyamoto Musashi?" Terrified, the samurai seemed to wobble slightly on his feet. The fierceness in Musashi's eyes was something not often encountered in human beings. "Who are you?" Musashi asked. "Who are you?" Musashi asked crisply. Stop stammering. "Who are you?" I'm from the house of Lord Karasumaru Mitsuhiro. I'm Miyamoto Musashi, but what's a retainer of Lord Karasumaru's doing up here in the middle of the night?" "Then you are Musashi," he sighed with relief. The next instant he was running at breakneck speed down the mountain. torch trailing light behind him. Musashi turned and continued on his way across the mountainside. When the samurai reached the vicinity of the Ginkakuji, he shouted, "Kura, where are you? We are here, where are you?" It wasn't the voice of Kura, another retainer of Karasumaru, but that of Jotaro. "Jotaro, is that you?" "Yes, come out here fast. I can't. Otsu can't walk any farther." The samurai swore under his breath, raised his voice even higher, and shouted, "Come quick, I found Musashi. Musashi, if you don't hurry, we will lose him." Jotaro and Otsu were about 200 yards farther down the path. It took a while for their long shadows, seemingly linked together, to hobble up to the samurai. He waved his torch to hurry them on, and in a matter of seconds could hear for himself Otsu labor breathing. Her face looked whiter than the moon. The travel paraphernalia on her thin arms and legs seemed cruel and absurd. But when the light fell full on her, her cheeks took